Welcome to Three Devs and a Maybe, the podcast series for beginner web developers and general web enthusiasts. Now, introducing your show hosts, Michael Budd, Fraser Hart, Lewis Keynes, and Ed Mann.
Welcome to another episode of Three Devs and a Maybe. I am joined today by Ed Mann and Lewis Keynes.
Thank you very much.
That was
You didn't
amazing.
like it, did you?
No,
You
I
hated
just
it. Be
wasn't
honest.
expecting it. Can you play it again? I know we're already into the show, but play it again.
Was it too quiet?
No,
No,
I think it was okay. We heard it, definitely. Is that Microsoft Sam?
No, it is not. But basically, right, I was looking online this week on how to clear your DNS on El Capitan. I hate the fact it changes every version, but there we go. So then I saw at the end of the command, it said, say DNS cache cleared. I was like, that's a weird command. So then I just typed in say on the command line, and then just typed in a message, and realised it just says whatever you put in.
Well, hello everyone. I thought that was great. That was probably the best. But beyond,
hate
I
it?
speak. No, I love it. I love it. Okay, and I think that rivals Lou's Guess Who's Back. That was
No
one of the
way.
introductions we've done. I don't know. It's up there with me. Anyway, how are we all doing today? Lou, how are you doing?
He's typing on his command line, isn't he?
Lou is now typing his guy. Mickey, how are you doing?
Okay, yeah, I'll stop playing games now. How am I doing? I'm really good. Yeah, I can't complain.
How's Black Friday treating you and Smuddle? That's the question.
I keep looking on Google Analytics on real time, and it says people on your site 0. That's like, oh. But no, we didn't expect anything.
It looks good though. I really like the design, man. I think it's been really good. I mean, it works well and everything. Yeah. So I mean, is that so? The current feed? How many feeds are you doing? eBay and
Yeah, at the minute, so we had eBay and Amazon, and I thought I'd added Tesco, but turns out they hadn't really accepted us. So whilst I was generating the links, you clicked on the links, and it was just there's no agreement between this affiliate and their website yet. So I was like, oh. Yeah, so a lot of the bigger affiliates, you do have to be accepted first. And to be accepted, they want to check out your website. And it's kind of well, if I don't have any affiliates and I haven't got a website, and if I don't have a website, then I can't get
where do you
affiliates.
start from? Almost there.
Yeah.
Because I was about to say, how do you get around kind of starting to do this? Get affiliate? Because I mean, I've never known Tesco's to have an API that you can kind of affiliate with. So do they have it open and do they have a developer channel kind of thing?
Tesco's is just a CSV download. There is no API. And
that is beautiful. How frequently is that updated, that CSV download?
You know what? I honestly don't know. At the minute, I've just downloaded it, shoved all the results in a table, but I think what I will do is perhaps do a file get contents and just put in the URL or something and run that every day to keep it up to date. But like you say, I've no idea how often that's updated. No idea. But because obviously for me, for speed reasons, I have to import everything and then, use local results rather than calling the APIs every time. Yeah. It's only if a fresh search term is searched that then I have to go after the APIs. But anything that's already been searched, I've got my my Laravel cron job just crawling every hour and updating the results. So
does it have a TTL on how? I suppose every hour, then it will just refresh those ones. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
That's it. So I mean, the system's it's working good. We've got some bad, there is some bad results in there, which probably hasn't helped us. And you can imagine you type in an iPhone and you're going to get iPhone accessories. Especially as part of my query is a lot of it is ordering on price. So, but
you get that, don't you? Where you say, as you say, obviously accessory is going to be a lot cheaper than the actual iPhone. Have you looked into full text index searching kind of?
Yeah, but that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm doing a full text search and I'm assigning a score. But the thing is, if you imagine, even if you type in iPhone and you have iPhone accessories, then the full text score is still going to be pretty high. Because it's got that full word in there. You almost need to also wait in the fact that there's no more words. That is the full text. Because you could have you looked into stuff like Sphinx and Elasticsearch and things like that. That may be the next kind of port of call for you than just using MySQL's one. Yeah, I think it was you who told me about it, and then friend Nick McDowell, he told me about something else that they use, which is it's
Algolia. A lot of people are using that now.
Yeah, no, it was something that's really built in for the purpose of kind of, searching and full text search, that kind of stuff. But I cannot remember for the life of me what it was. But I need to look at other things like that, to be honest with you.
But no, it's good. This gives you the kind of, emphasis to do it. Or Is it Lucian?
Yes,
Apache Lucian. That's what Elasticsearch is built on. So you could use Elasticsearch, like kind of that extra layer on top, which gives you the RESTful API to it. Whereas Lucian is just, as you say, that full text index bit of it. And then Sphinx is C based and C++, and it kind of we found when we worked in our old company, we were using Sphinx heavily, and at the first I was like, it's not as cool as Elasticsearch and all this thing, but really, actually, it's really well suited for stuff like MySQL. It's got a very good infrastructure. It has a great API and kind of entry point into MySQL, so you can use MySQL and you can use a foreign like data wrapper almost thing, foreign extension, and it will actually go and do searches to Sphinx in its own as Sphinx query language, and then bring it back as MySQL results that you can then quickly do joins in, because that's essentially what you want. All you want is IDs. This essentially, you give it a string and I want IDs, and then I can just do a search.
Exactly what I'm trying to do, really, just reduce everything to that level, and you can do things quick. But I need to look into that. But I have to say, I know you guys have been using it a lot longer than I have, but I love Laravel now.
You're fully sold on it.
Yeah, and there's just so much stuff that I don't even think I'm using now. Like every day, I'm like, I wonder if Laravel has this, and it's like, it does. It does exactly what I want it to do. So it's fantastic.
Has there been
really
any kind of hiccups in the road with it? Like, have you been other than setup? I know you were saying about development environments and things like that, but along when it was injection and things like that.
I think more. This isn't Laravel's because it's just me. Like, I probably didn't read documentation as quickly as well as I should. Things like migrations, I kept getting like weird messages like saying, "Oh, this table already exists." And I was like, "Well, yeah, I know it does, but get rid of it and start again." And I think that was just my lack of understanding with it, to be honest with you. But now I've got that working. It's really nice because I'm working with another developer, and if I add another table, I just update, change my migrations, and I say to Jason, I'll just run this command, and then he suddenly got it, without having to export SQL and all that kind of stuff. Really nice. But now in terms of hiccups, no, I can't say I have really. Just like little faffy bits, like database settings in the M file, that kind of stuff, where I forgot to change it when moving stuff around, which kind of defeats the object. Shouldn't need to do that, but just stupid things on my behalf, nothing to do with Laravel. But no, I found it. I don't like using the term rapid development, but it has allowed me to do stuff a lot quicker.
Well, I mean, that was its main thing, is to be able to get a project up and running in a weekend kind of feel, wasn't it? Like I have this kind of idea that I want to explore and I want to build upon, and this is kind of that use case where you have a project idea, you want to get something out there, you want to get an MVP out there for people to have a look at, and this is doing it for you, and that's great. Yeah,
I completely agree. Really, really good. Really enjoying it. So
that's awesome. Like and then, so you're using like the cron jobs in the background, etc., like that. Use it, taking advantage of again. I can't remember what Laravel calls it, but like their way of nice DSL.
I think they change it from version to version, but I think it's just called the scheduler now. I think
scheduling task that.
Yeah, and you can create obviously create your own artisan commands, and then you can schedule in that command to be run. So like I create a command called search, and search gets run every hour. So it is really, really nice. And obviously you can just run that on the command line if you want to, if you're impatient or whatever. So,
Well, that's great, Mick. I mean, it's good to see that like this has been able to you've been able to release something, because I know that you said like last episode we did that you may not be able to get anything out for Black Friday, but it seems that you have been able to, and that's awesome. Have you had the chance to have a look into like queuing things yet and things like that, or is that really just like down the road, next stages?
Definitely down the road, yeah. And I'm doing my first sort of work project in Laravel now as well, and again that's helped me to develop something really, really quick. And so it's fantastic. I'm really looking forward to taking that to work and showing people, the tools that it gives you.
That's cool. So you've been able to. Is this like through the confidence of being able to do it in your own work, like kind of a private work, that you've been able to say, "Oh, look, let's use Laravel in the day job"?
Yeah, I think that's it. And the thing is, it's all good me going and saying, "Oh, guys, we really should be using Laravel," and then they turn around and say, "Well, how do you use it?" And I say, "Well, I haven't got a clue."
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. You kind of half the story, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, like I could, make controllers, whatever, but it's not really the point. So now I feel a lot more confident that I can go in and say, "Oh yeah, look, this is really good. This is really good." Well, I'm not going to go and say I know it inside out, but I know it enough that I can go to the documentation now and add this and add that or whatever. So
The good thing with Laravel is that if you've never used a framework before, you've got a very good chance of getting it going with Laravel straight away. And if you have used frameworks before, you can just literally pick up Laravel and go straight away.
True. Yeah,
the documentation's so good, and they've even put some case studies on there now, haven't they? Like how to couple of kind of live examples, and stuff.
That's it.
Because you're using Laravel in your projects, aren't you, Lou, as well? Laravel 5.1.
Well, before we get onto that...
Can I just say thanks so much for listening to our podcast. I must say that knowing I can do this appeals to all the wrong sides of my personality. Oh, and Michael Budd is a handsome, bald man.
You got a different voice to mine. I heard that. Yeah, thanks.
That was great. I do blame you, Mickey, for bringing this to the podcast.
Was it worth the wait?
It was definitely worth the wait. So how are you doing, Lou? How's things going your end?
Things are going very well on my end. I'm just putting my headphones back in. Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
And
we can
lovely.
Well, actually, firstly, a question for you, Mickey. How does Lewis's mic sound today?
Very clear, I hope.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Is it better or worse than last week's episode?
Do you know what? I saw Lou, your tweets and stuff about the quality, and I must admit, I've not listened back to the episode, but when we were talking last week, it sounded fine to me.
Well,
that was a fluke.
That was a fluke, yeah. Well, it wasn't a fluke per se that it wasn't using the new Snow
or the
Smirnoff Ice, as we're nicknaming it now.
Blue Smirnoff Ice, no.
It wasn't using
I'm
the Blue
using
Smirnoff Ice.
The stupid thing is on the box, it just literally said just plug in the news, so I just thought it would override the built-in microphone.
So you had to go to preferences and then change it over from built-in to,
But I mean, it shows you how good the mic then is, and just is a bog standard Mac, which is quite amazing. We think that. But then
it's good, really.
But then, to be honest, now you can hear the difference, and I can say that it is noticeably different now, Lou. So you do have, upgraded audio.
It's a lot clearer. It's frustrating to listen to stuff that's not clear. So hopefully this is better.
Well, and how's your week been, Lou?
Oh Christ, yeah, it's been a good and a bad week, really. There's been a lot going on. I've got a lot of kind of bits going on and covering a lot of new things. Thankfully, Ed's been there to help me out with a load of stuff and stuff to do with like HTTP requests and things that I haven't really dabbled around with much. But we'll get to that in a minute. I've got a few things written down actually. I've got like topics to discuss this week, which we probably won't get round to all of them. So shall I read out my list to see which ones you guys fancy?
Yeah, go for it, man.
Yeah.
So the first one I've got is my site. Can we discuss my site? Yeah,
of course we can. Have you got? So when is this released? I've seen a sneak peek. It's looking lovely, and it's going to be available next Monday. Am I right in thinking?
Available
for order.
Available for download
at the moment.
Yeah. No. Yep. It's
coming. I suppose when this podcast comes out, actually, it will have already been available, and it'll be in the show notes. So there we go.
Well, that's true. Yeah. If you're listening now, go to lkaineswebdeveloper.co.uk and look at my stunning design.
I think I can't see this yet, though, right?
Ed, that was where you were supposed to agree with me.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, no. I do agree. Sorry, I've already said. I was waiting for you to carry on. And I was like, oh no, there's this silence now. Do I go in there? Do I not? Mickey went in then. Okay, carry on. So, your website, lovely.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I work for a design company, but I've never claimed to be a designer myself. But I quite enjoy messing around with designing, so I've just kind of gone for it with this one and just kind of let it evolve as I've gone along. And I'm actually, without the risk of sounding overconfident or anything, because I'm certainly not, but I think it's come out alright. I'm quite happy with it, and I'm quite looking forward to putting it live and seeing what people think. So
yeah, no, I like it a lot.
It seems crazy that I haven't got my own site live yet. I've had the domain for about 3 years. But then the trouble
isn't it like anything? Like it's like any profession. Like say you've got a plasterer and they plaster all day, but their house has probably got shoddy plastersmanship and they can't be bothered. When they get home, the last thing they want to do is the job that they do. So you think, like a bricklayer, they got, I think it kind of translates really well. Where doing it ourselves, we're probably too over perfectionist. We start something, we then think, I'll put it on the back burner. I can't do it anymore. I've got some time. I'll start again. I've got all these wacky, amazing ideas that I want to do. We're not the same clinical maybe as we are when we're dealing with a client or dealing with a project, because that needs to get done. Whereas our own personal website projects can kind of go by the wayside and be forgotten about until we really need them. And that's if we ever really need them.
Yeah, and you can rush it as well, and then for the sake of feeling the pressure of, you want to put your own site out there.
Sometimes it's good to rush it in some sense, because at least you get a deliverable. It's that whole thing, isn't it? Where it's at least you get something out there, and you get an MVP that you can then iterate on. But as you say, it's sometimes at a detriment because it could be bad and maybe paint you in a bad light. But
hopefully it doesn't. I've tried to make it as nice looking and easy to navigate as possible. A lot of thought's gone into it, so hopefully when people see the finished result, they'll like it.
No, and also, I don't know whether you want to mention this now, but you're going to say that you're going to be hopefully doing some screencasts and things like that. That's what you're planning to do. I think you mentioned that last week, actually. Yeah,
that's definitely something that's in the pipeline once the site goes live. So on my site, I'm going to have a blog. I've already written my first post for that. I'm going to have some tutorials on there. I'm not sure what kind of tutorials they're going to be, but they could be whole-scale tutorials for building something from scratch, or it could just be things that crop up day-to-day at work or whatever. And I've also got a snippets area. I've actually got an L. Keynes, what's it called? Lewis Keynes snippets.co.uk?
Yeah, I think I remember that.
Sorry, it's losesnippets.co.uk. Oh yeah, there it is. That was my first ever dabble with Laravel. That might even be on version 3. Losesnippets.co.uk. Yeah, there it is. So I'm going to bring all that stuff over into my site as well. But then, on top of that, once that's all live, I would like to make some screencasts, definitely.
That's cool. Can I mention just one thing, talking about domains quickly? Everyone should visit mincepie.challenge.com. That is mincepie.challenge.com.
I already know what this is going to be before I look at it.
It's a challenge for mince pies. My girlfriend's mum mentioned that, just kind of randomly said, and really kind of innocently said, it's always fun to, dabble and see which mince pie is the best at Christmas time, For the audience outside of the UK, because I've realised that mince pies aren't that well known around the world, which is crazy. It's just like a pastry.
You said that with real passion.
It's crazy, the amount of mince pies I've tried now is insane. So
yeah. These guys are are they our new sponsors or something?
They are. Well, now
very
this
unusual.
is the thing. So essentially, I've just got the domain. I decided waste £8 on that, and it just redirects to a Google spreadsheet where it's logging all of these lovely mince pies
awesome.
Ratings. 1 out of 10. Is this sad? I don't know.
Nah,
but it's happening.
Don't worry about it.
That's all that matters, Anyway, Luke, carry on. That was a segue into domains, and I thought, I've got to go for it here.
I have a question to pose to both of you guys.
Go for it.
Obviously, you both have your own site live now, obviously. And was it edman.com and michaelbudd.org?
That's correct, yeah.
Actually, first of all, was michaelbudd.co.uk taken then, Mick? Is that why you went with org? Or?
No, well, it was originally, yeah. I now have .co.uk, and I've moved everything over to .co.uk. But for some reason, I cancelled the domain .org, and if you go to michaelbudd.org, it still comes up, so I don't know what's going on
Why
there.
have you cancelled it? I would have just kept it and just done a redirect. I've hijacked pretty much any ed man that I can find. I've hijacked.
Yeah.
For the fact of,
I think I had about 30 domains. And I was like,
oh my
I
days.
can't keep renewing all these.
Yeah.
And they were just stupid things that I was like, I might do this at some point. Like,
oh no, what was one of the mobile phone thing? No, what was the mobile phone?
I think I bought myphonefun.com or something like, I don't know, some crazy ones.
I bought kentwebdevelopers.co.uk because I had this crazy idea of putting this kind of forum site together for all Kent web developers, but I don't live in Kent anymore, so it would be pointless. You guys are welcome to it if you want it. That's all we need, another project at the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Just make it redirect to Lewis Keynes.
Yeah.
That's what I would do,
But anyway, my question. So you guys have got your blog posts on your website.
Yeah.
Okay, so to do mine, what I'm doing, I'm writing them in Markdown first of all, and then obviously passing them to HTML and putting them out that way, and just kind of including the file to put the blog post out. How are you guys doing it? Are you doing it a similar way, or do you use anything else? Or
do you want to go first, Mickey?
Sure, yeah, I'm just putting mine in a database, to be honest with you. I don't have like an interface for it or anything. I just literally just raw straight into the database, and I'm just...
like literally straight into SQL Pro, you don't use...
Yeah, exactly that.
Wow.
Although I've got beef with SQL Pro, but I'm not using my SQL Workbench, which is painful. But I don't know why I did it that way. It was just, I don't know, it seemed quick for me. But now I probably would do, I think the same as what Ed does. I'd probably use Jekyll maybe.
But yeah, so it's the GitHub offering, and it's so much. It's so easy. Like, I mean, what I love about it is that GitHub hosts it as well. So I've actually been able to move away from having my own DigitalOcean hosting. I did have my own my own implementation, my own little website written in. But initially Scala, then it was PHP and things like this, where it would do the Markdown, translate, transform it, and then either chuck it out to a file or just dynamically do it onto the screen on per request. But then just going with Jekyll allows me then to be able to easily do that, do Markdown, but then they handle all the stuff of transforming it, and then just delivering it.
Do you use Gulp for transforming stuff or anything like that?
No, it's Jekyll does it all. Jekyll or it is a Ruby plugin or Ruby gem, sorry, and essentially it's just like bundled in with it is all of that stuff where it will do like the well, I don't think it uses Gulp, but like it has like the SAS, all that stuff where it transpiles that, and then it also has the Markdown stuff, and it can do it like on a dev server environment where you can dynamically, constantly refresh and update it, so you can just see what your website's looking like locally, and then you can just push it up with a couple of tweaks to GitHub, or actually just with I think it's just with a GitHub kind of like CNAME file if you want to set it up to actually be with a unique domain, and then you just need to update your own records. So it's really simple to do, and I really recommend that. But the nice thing about what you've done is it gives you that flexibility and being able to play around with things, because that's what I do miss that a bit. And I think that's where you kind of, one other thing with our own personal blogs and things is it's our space to be able to explore. I noticed that a couple of weeks ago, someone had written an article about how they'd used like Redux and Immutable JS and this all these new philosophies, and they haven't been able to do it in their own projects, like in their work day job, or like even in like kind of a more complicated application environment space, but they've been able to do it on their blog, and they've been able to use it on the blog, and then they've been able to discuss it there. So a blog is it's trivial, but it's complex enough. So I use Jekyll, Mickey uses a database, and you're using static files?
Yeah, basically what I do is I'm using my CMS on the back of it. I just create the name of the article that I want to do. It generates a Markdown file, which I then use, and then I've got a Gulp file which watches for changes and then pipes them through to an HTML file and then reads that out.
That's cool, man. That sounds cool.
It's not. I do like Gulp. I use Gulp for a lot of things now. I've started using Browserify and everything, so I'm piping stuff through there as well, and learning that's been fun. So I'm trying to make all my JavaScript code a lot more modular now, and it's a very modern practice now, isn't it, using Browserify? Seems like everyone's doing it.
You got Browserify and Webpack. I mean, we kind of go Webpack. It's a bit more, it kind of emphasizes it's a kind of kitchen sink approach. It has everything kind of like, but some people don't like it for that the documentation can just be like, oh, here's everything. This is all the documentation. It's a bit intimidating. Whereas I think Browserify probably has a bit more of a nicer, gradual approach. Webpack's nice because it's really clever dependency managing, and it's able to like split out dependencies and looking at the dependency graph and be able to work out how it can modularly split out things. And it does this hot code replacement where it's able to just inject the changes for a module. So say like you're saving something, it's able to just find those changes, and then you even know it's got like almost like Erlang does, where it's got like this idea of being able to just change the bits on the screen that need changing with this module update. It's very cool, and it provides like really good rapid development.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's that for that. So I've covered my site, Markdown, Browserify. I've also written going over old stuff anytime new stuff done. And I've got no idea what that refers to.
That is probably for something else that you just written.
Oh, actually, yeah, I do think I know what that is. Yeah, so that's kind of this this thing, like, anytime you learn something new now and you bring it into a project, and you then go back over any projects you've done in the past, do you suddenly feel like, oh Christ, now I need to refactor all that in line with what I'm doing in this project? Or do you just kind of keep the website as it is at that state of time? Are you constantly kind of updating old sites as you come back to them and bringing them up to how you're doing things currently? Or how do you manage that? Probably doesn't apply to you, Ed, because you're...
Well, I mean, it does actually in some cases, not where, the fact that, like, it's for a different site, but it's probably actually more closely for the fact that when you go back to code, you've learnt a new way, a concept of doing something, and you go back to code that you've wrote in the past, and you look and you go, oh no, I'm not doing this right. And actually, it's probably harder because of the fact that maybe you'll be doing some changes around it. Like maybe because I'm going to be touching this code base, and this code more often. That, with a site in general, it's just I don't need to look at that site anymore. Whereas this, I need to look at this code all the time. So, I go by the fact of value. It's very hard sometimes to not want to, like, it's very hard not to say no, like, I can't do this, because you really do just want to, once you've learned something, you're like, okay, I've got to do this everywhere now because I look stupid if I haven't done it. And you look at the old code and you're like, oh, I look really stupid there. And, your ego kind of gets a bit like, oh, I feel bad, like, I haven't been able to do this, etc. like that. And it's hard, as you say, because then people looks at Git blame and they can see, oh, you wrote this like this, but you have to think, okay, at that space in time, that head state, what I knew back then, this is how I did it. And I did it to the best of my abilities I could. That's what you can do.
I completely agree, and I'm like you both. I look back at some of my tutorials and think, oh, that is shocking. I wouldn't do that. But the thing is, like, you're not writing a tutorial for someone to copy your code. You're writing a tutorial to try and explain how something works. So even if your code isn't, like, quite right, then I think, well, it's the philosophy, the idea that you're trying to teach.
That's it. What about with code with you? Just like if you have, like, say, something that is just spaghetti code and you wrote it a week ago, but in that headspace, of course, you had to write it that way. Maybe it was a tight deadline or something like that. But now you've got a new feature, and now you've got maybe a day, or maybe you've got a new feature, and either it's a day free that you can, spend maybe on doing some changes, or implementing the feature early, or all these different pros and cons of doing it different ways, and things like that. Would you more want to just go scrap all the old code and start again, or would you go, okay, let's do slow, short refactoring loops?
Well, I know we've had this debate. I think there's a time and a place for both. I just sort of scrapped about 8 months worth of work in order to rewrite it and do things in Laravel. So
I've been through that process as well.
Yeah, the project got to the point where, do you know what? I knew it was fundamentally flawed, and no refactoring would have fixed it. You would have just been, I always use this analogy, but I say if, like, the foundations are unstable, then it doesn't matter how much you refactor on top of it, how much you patch up the brickwork, whatever.
Has this code base gone live as well then, or is this still in R&D development?
It hadn't really, but it was being used almost to that effect in a live environment. But it's a grey area really. But do you know what? It was enough was enough, and I just went to my boss and said, look, it just has to be redone. And it wasn't a popular decision, but I'm lucky enough that my boss said, okay, go with it. But it's a hard call to make. But yeah, I agree with you. In the majority of situations, as long as your code if it's working, if there's no, like, obvious, like, performance issues, then I think you can slowly refactor over time. But I guess there's a time and place for both, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, that is the thing. I do favour refactoring, short refactor. I've been burnt more with full rewrites, and I think, like, history has also said, like, full rewrites sometimes, I just, people think of them as, like, the best thing. Starting off greenfield is awesome, but then they realise actually it becomes brownfield very quickly. But as you say, like, then it does weigh it up with the as you say, the foundations, because if the foundations are wrong, maybe fundamentally, I don't know, was it a bespoke PHP kind of, hodgepodge thing that you was, thing, or, was it using an existing framework that you just decided not to, to kind of go away from it?
Do you know what this makes me think of? The company we all used to work at, the agricultural based website that we all had to maintain.
Yeah,
you can't mention specifics, but this was a procedural, yeah, why not? Procedural classic ASP website that was messy, to say the least. And we all had the privilege. There's a little bit of all of us left in that website, and it was. I'd love to see what the state that's in now. It's probably much the same, but can you imagine trying to take that back to scratch and trying to rewrite that?
And that's the thing though. Like, would that have been a success? Like, would it have been better actually maybe then to start picking out bits, saying, okay, well, this area, let's just fix this area at this time. As opposed to let's nuke everything. And I suppose, but like you say, the foundations, like now, I mean, I'm assuming then, Mickey, it didn't use the framework then at all, and it was...
Didn't, no. I mean, it was sort of built into our content management system, our in-house one.
Right, okay. So it had a lot of kind of baggage that was unrelated to it from the start.
100%. In fact, I felt like they were shackles that were really limiting me to what I could do. And obviously I couldn't... Things like PHP version, it wouldn't have coped well with upgrading to anything above 5.6. And obviously, like, requirements for Laravel, like 5.59, and all kinds of, like, issues and stuff. And I was just like, you know what, let's just clean slate. And I reckon I probably accomplished more in about 2 days than what I had in the past 6 months.
And I think that makes sense, where if you've got all this baggage, and if the baggage is so heavy that from the beginning, and I suppose at the beginning when you get these short, like, kind of wins where you're like, okay, small wins where you're like, okay, yeah, cool, I've done that. Even though it's hard, it's okay. But then eventually it just mounts up more, and it just kind of, it just becomes worse, worse and worse and worse. And sometimes biting the bullet and saying, okay, we need to start again. And they say there's no science to it, is there? There's not an exact science. It really is a feeling, and it's also, you could be right or you could be wrong at the end of the day.
Absolutely. It's a judgment call. And like you say, you could be wrong, but you just got to go with it, haven't you? What does your gut say? And
what does your previous experience say?
Well,
and also another thing is that people, and trying to get people, I know that Lou, you did this with code bases, is that you started using your own one, but then you were quite admirable and kind of caring for other developers, thinking, actually, I better start using other, a tried and true framework that other people may know, so as to make it easier for other people to come on board, and maybe actually to be able to sell the company to other people because we're using these technologies. Not that your bespoke framework wasn't any better or worse than Laravel. In fact, no, but it's true though. That the technology could be the same. It could be the same. It's the fact that people may know about this one, and there's already loads of documentation about this one already, that they're going to, it'd be easier for them to get up to speed with it, whether yours is better or not. I mean, sometimes what is it? The better the devil you know, or something like that, where it's better to have something that someone already knows about than it is trying something maybe that's even better. So having a even if this bespoke thing was great, it's good having this foundation as a solid foundation is something that other people use. And I know that like Laravel is the same as Symfony, where it's got long-term, support cycles. So that this framework's going to be, this release is going to be supported for at least a couple of years, which is great for business. And it's got great for business sense. I can, the documentation's there, there's resources, there's conferences around this. You can get new developers in that can understand this. They'll want to know this because it's the new cool thing. Yeah, I think it's a good way to go. Typically you don't want to be really reliant on one framework and be like, oh, I only know this framework. But having frameworks and tools and things like that as selling points to other developers, and also to get people involved in the project, is a good thing, I feel.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, that was a big reason why I did move over to Laravel, was obviously, because I'm not working freelance independently. I do, fair enough, I do work on my own in my company, but the possibility that I'm going to need to share code and work and collaborate with other people is never out of the question. Occasionally we work alongside another company, so there's going to be times when they need to see it. And if I've got this whole thing I've concocted myself, then it's going to be time consuming and tricky to show them that. But I think it just got to the point as well where I must have probably been using it for the best part of a year. And like Mike says, I knew that there were kind of fundamental things in there that I wasn't too happy about. And in what I would have liked to have done was maybe rewritten it from scratch, and having learned everything that I learned as I was building it. But, working full time and having a life and everything else, that was never going to be an option. So, it just had to be, I had to make a choice, and that's
isn't it a very depressing thing? And I don't like thinking this, but everything we do is fundamentally wrong. Like,
Yeah.
the thing that we're right today, eventually we will feel isn't right,
Yeah.
and it probably won't be best practice, and it'll probably be heavily debated upon and be wrong, and people. So,
Can I mention something on that? I deliberately now I avoid all these debates that go on about design patterns, best practices, anything. I take note of them and I try and learn what they are so I know them. But all the debates that go on that get ugly and everything else,
the Boolean, you're right or you're wrong. There's no
all the Reddit stuff, everything like that. I've got absolutely no time for any of it. End of the day, we're all trying to do a job and we're all trying to, we're not writing any bad code on purpose. And the fact that there's people out there that get so
rolled up about it, and particularly in like fictitious, kind of contrived examples. Whereas, where design patterns really strive and all these, and where all these best practices really happen are design patterns come out of bred from your code, existing code. They're not injected in. You don't say, I'm going to use a builder here. Really, a builder comes out of what you're designing. Yeah. When you first start off with these patterns, they're cool kind of concepts and you want to show off that you know all these things. Oh yeah, I'm going to have a factory for here and a factory there, and oh yeah, I'm well cool. I'm really advanced. I know all these concepts, I've read the design pattern book. I know this stuff, But then you realize actually no, it doesn't matter at all about what that is. These things and this is the real cool thing is when you start refactoring on things and if you use TDD, etc., you'll see that, oh wow, okay, this is becoming into a builder. Okay, well this is why this, because they didn't decide, the people who made design patterns, the gang of four, did not go, oh, you know what, I'm going to make this idea called a factory. All right, let me try and find a place where I can use this factory. No, it came from problems that they already had, and it was like just a common, as you're saying, quite design pattern, a pattern of what was happening.
Yeah,
exactly. I kind of look at it like when you're learning to drive. Yeah, you learn how to use the clutch. You learn how to read road signs and everything like that. But still, it's not teaching you how to drive in the real world, is it?
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't learn how to drive until you've passed your driving test and you're out there on your own and you're actually doing it. You can learn
think of it. No, I completely agree.
I kind of view it the same way. You get, there's got to be these people out there that, yes, congratulations, you can recite the seven solid principles. I always say that 5 solid principles.
There's a hidden 2. I like that. There's a hidden 2. We can make up the other 2.
I've made up 2 of my own. I don't know what they are.
The solid principles.
Yeah, but all right, fair enough. You know all of that stuff, but does that mean that person A does a better job than person B? Is that always
it's all different factors? Absolutely agree.
I'm never going to be in a position where I'll be writing something and suddenly think, oh no, I'd better undo that because I've violated single responsibility. Let me finish this bit. What I will do, obviously I'll realise that, if I write this code wrong, it's going to affect something wrong, in another part of the website. I'm going to pick up the error somewhere else anyway, and I'm going to realise that, now I've got to do twice as much work or something like that. It's not suddenly this defined, categorised, single responsibility principle is going to bang into my head suddenly. I don't know. Do you get what I mean?
I do understand where you're coming from, actually. Yeah, I mean, I kind of, when you get into this kind of habit of using and understand, as you say, like understand these philosophies like we do now, like we do. I mean, we understand as much as well as we can. You kind of get patterns in your own head of like, I've done this before and I know this ends bad if I do it this way because of, single responsibility, because of these things. But then I tell you one thing, actually, I'd like to say, and I think it's the biggest curse. And I think, Sandra Metz, it was in one of her talks that she mentioned it. Don't you think that the dry principle is one of the biggest pains and one of the worst things ever? And I'll explain why before, because I mean, everyone thinks don't repeat
quite
yourself.
Controversial.
That's like the first one you learn.
Okay, there it is. So it's the first one you learn. Yep. So what do? You have some code, and you think, I've got to refactor this till nothing's duplicated anywhere. Now, what you end up with is a big, big, big mess, because it's one of the easiest. Don't repeat yourself. Quite
often you don't know yourself what's going on. If you come back to it later, you think, what the heck did I do there?
You've abstracted the hell out of it. You've legitimately abstracted the hell out of it because that's what the dry principle says. Don't repeat yourself. Because and it's the first one that everyone learns because it's the easiest. Because you can look at 2 bits of code and think, they're doing the same thing. Let's abstract that. But the trouble is we do that too much. And I find that with it, and I also find people hate doing duplication now. I feel duplication and is one of the easiest things to be able to fix. So do it later on. Push it to the end. And I think another thing someone says, and I can't remember who, but it's like, nothing's worse than the wrong abstraction. No abstraction at all is better than the wrong abstraction. Sorry. So I tend to do this, these sins, say in the TDD life cycle, and this is where the TDD comes in so well. You can do all the sins, I'm not using dry, I'm violating dry, I'm not abstracting this, I'm inlining all this. Eventually, yes, I will then come to the refactor, I'll go back to it and I'll be like, okay, now I need to look at what I've got. But the trouble is, what we do is we quickly go with, it's not dry, okay, we'll quickly change that and we'll abstract that, and we just it becomes a mess.
Do you think it'd be a fair comment to say that you'll never refactor to the best of your ability on anything until it's done anyway? If you're constantly refactoring before you've even got to the end of what you're doing.
I don't think you're never going to refactor to the best. Full stop. Like, it's going to be as good as it can get. I think that's where perfection is a
it's also like
unattainable
you say,
goal.
If you're constantly abstracting and you're constantly going backwards, aren't you? You're not actually progressing.
This is it.
You're looking at it and thinking,
this is
what
it.
can I improve?
And sometimes, this is the thing where it's quite funny. Like, okay, so you were saying about that website that we will not mention, but okay, there was a boatload of if conditionals there, wasn't there?
Switch statements.
All of that. Right.
Includes.
But majority of that was in one file. Like, say, I know that you made this, a nice abstraction, which people would still say, well, it's just if conditionals and it would just include certain things.
Is this me?
Yeah, that's you. I'm sure I remember you doing something, where, and it would have a couple of comments, and, each one of these ifs would hold you a comment, and you could uncomment this bit of code, and it would do certain bits of it, at certain times and things like that. You were able to easily be able to manage this file. Now, people would say, oh, there's probably dry things you can probably do in there. You're repeating yourself and things like that. Oh, you're not abstraction. There's no real abstraction there. These if conditionals. Oh, well, we can deal with that with OO because we can use polymorphism, things like that. We can do these cool things, How we can even use a framework on it. Now, are there all those abstractions easier? Once you've, with all the overhead of having to know and understand these concepts than just a file with what you already had.
Yeah,
now, one may be fundamentally better. One may be fundamentally scientifically, not scientific, but more academically, this is proven, this is better in itself. But value-wise, probably picking up that one file and being able to read it and understand it in that time frame is better than going through all these files and thinking, oh, what is going on here? Okay, well, there's this factory here that's making an abstract, blah, blah, and again, it's the abstractions are wrong. And you may have, done the abstractions too early on, or you've probably abstracted too much and things like that. And it's weighing up the pros and cons. I'm not saying, obviously that this file is perfect and that it's better than doing. But I think there's a level of abstraction, and I think people do too much, and I definitely have done too much and do too much sometimes.
I'd be interested to see what you make, because I do what I said there. I very rarely refactor anything until I'm happy that it's working and done. Because my philosophy has always been to get something working first.
That's it, absolutely. The TDD loop is, I have a test, it's failing, fix it, do anything you need to be able to run that test to make it pass. Now, refactor. Red, green, refactor loop. It's the perfect way, and it's the way that we do it even in like kind of high levels where, as you say, like, typically I would do it before, when we was just the REPL loop was just doing it within the browser, is that, you do, maybe like designing something. Okay, you'd be playing around with this and you'd make the worst awful CSS ever. You'd just be like duplicating it everywhere. Okay, I just want to make this sure. Then you'd go back and go, okay, well, clean. I can see patterns in this code, in this CSS that I can now abstract out and things like that.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Mick?
I'm just annoyed that Ed's making me think on Friday. It's like it's against the rules.
Yeah, so I think I don't know if it's that controversial though. I
don't think it is. I think there's.
I think maybe Mickey's got like a rebuttal, and I mean this would be cool.
No, I don't necessarily disagree with you.
I think it's common sense, isn't it? You're not gonna deliberately do these things, are you? And if you do, then you'll soon learn why that's wrong. And you'll learn because you've been affected by it, rather than reading something on a piece of paper that says you should
That's
do
it.
something a
and
particular way.
fundamentally, all these principles and all these patterns and all these, in quotes, laws, even though they're not laws, they're not like scientific laws, like law of Demeter is not a scientific law. I love that,
Einstein's
it's like
theory
law of gravity,
of single responsibility.
Exactly. These things are there to help and solve. And I've had this problem. We spoke about it last episode actually, which is I've been burnt by this problem. This has helped me solve that. And I completely agree with that. But I do also agree that we just use it sometimes when we shouldn't. I use it sometimes when I shouldn't. I just kind of again, I stop looking at the value of how it's going to help me as opposed, kind of looking at it from a bigger picture, maybe a bit more kind of unimpressed by actually wanting to do all these cool different things and be more like, okay, well, what can we, what shall we use?
I agree with you. And I had like a similar situation the other day where I had like a function or a method that was exactly the same, and I was using it in 2 classes. And I was like, well, okay, I'll take it out, but where do I put it? Like, what's the sort of natural relationship between these 2 classes? And there wasn't any relationship between the 2 classes. And really, I guess it was more like a helper function. So maybe I should have just done that. Or maybe I should use a trait. I never ever use traits.
No,
Ed, we had a discussion about this the other day, didn't we?
Yeah.
Actually, I had a similar situation. I'm trying to remember what it was.
That's it. It was a discussion about something with shared logic within a controller or within a certain thing. And
it needed. I had another class, 2 classes, and class B needed to use one method that was in class A, but it didn't need to use anything else beyond that.
And that's when inheritance sucks because you're like, oh no, I don't want to give everything to it. Yeah.
So that's where I said to Ed, I was like, would this be a good time to use a trait? But I ended up abstracting it into a manager that both of those implemented.
That's the thing, like the service kind of way, because then for me, I was like, oh, don't use it. Like, again, traits are really awesome, and I know that they've got good value and they've got good use cases, but actually I feel sometimes just good OOP principles of like, okay, maybe then these need to use, they've both got this, but they're not. Again,
it's like a bit of a hack to me.
It is, and I think that's the funny thing. It actually fundamentally is, though, isn't it? Because it's like being able to, it's breaking the principles of OOP in that you are now allowing them to both, like inheritance is okay, but composability is better. Composability with traits is fine, but maybe you just want to have an abstraction like a service or a class that you can then easily test, and you don't get any of the benefits with the traits with testing. I mean, again, I'm probably coming from a very naive point of view, but again, for me, that's how I feel. I feel kind of just having these basic OOP principles, and I don't mean like, because obviously if you go back to the basic ones of like with Java and things like Java and their factories, and it's you have to create a new class, and then it has to have a switch in it to make these new things. No, now brilliant. Do you know what we've got? We've got first class functions in things like PHP and even in now Java. Great, just use a key value, an associative array with some closures, some functions. That's a builder to me. Factory, sorry, that's a factory to me. Brilliant. Use that, like, again, that's the same premise, but it's not following to the rule exactly what a factory would be in the tenses of what the Gang of 4 would think, but it's kind of, again, the value is like, all right, I'm using this here because it's easy here, and it's still following the same principles, and it's providing me the same benefits.
That's how I handle anything that gets posted in my CMS goes to the same thing, and then you just pass a key value array to it, and then it goes off and does what it needs to do.
There you go, man. I mean, actually, one sidetrack, actually, and it is complete sidetrack, and I just before I forget, have any of you noticed the new Raspberry Pi?
No.
Raspberry Pi Zero.
Are you on mince pies again? Is this...
No. This is definitely not an edible mince pie. Oh dear, it'll be a tasty.
I've never used a Raspberry Pi in my life, actually. I must say.
There is actually a magazine, the Raspberry Pi magazine, I think it is in the UK, where we are, and there is a free Raspberry Pi Zero with it. There is a computer coming free with a magazine.
How much is the magazine?
The magazine's $5, and the actual Raspberry Pi Zero is like £4. There is a computer that costs £4 that's actually more powerful than the original Raspberry Pi from a couple of years ago.
When's this edition coming out?
I think it's already. It's out now. I think I'll put it in the show notes. But yeah, essentially, that it's insane. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Christmas present, right? That's amazing.
That is
Well,
insane.
give it to like your gran. Then probably
Well,
not,
exactly.
but-
I've just put it in the show notes. There's a Twitter tweet of it, and you can see here it is. And it's like this is funny. This tweet actually mentions, the fact from the 2012, and it says Moore's law in action, and you can see that the size of it's gone. Within a couple of years, it's the size of these things has gone down and the speed's gone up. Again, it's ridiculous. I can't believe it. How cheap these things can be, and that is a fully working computer right there.
I suppose they're doing the same with the iPhone 6 anyway.
Oh yeah, you can get the Apple.
It is Black Friday today. You never know.
Well,
Yes.
You don't ask, don't get.
Apple particularly don't really need to do these kind of Black Friday deals, do they? That's
Not
the thing
really.
with them. They
Check
know
this
they're
this
going to
morning. I couldn't see anything.
No,
But maybe that's
probably.
the time difference.
Maybe they don't even have anything. I mean, they don't need to. This is the trouble, isn't it? People are going to buy their stuff anyway.
I think in not many years to come, I think it'll have died out, because I've looked at a load of things this year that I looked at last year, and it's just not the same at all. I think the novelty is going to wear off soon.
What, with Macs? No,
with Black Friday.
Oh no, I don't know.
Right.
I think it's a massive in America, and it's a massive thing. I mean, Dave, my mate Dave, he actually took the day off, preparing for maybe having to go and somewhere early to get something. Like, he relies on it for Christmas shopping. So whereas me, I'm kind of like, I'm just too lazy for that. I kind of do it when I feel like I can do it.
Did you guys just think that I was saying that Macs were going to die out soon?
Yeah, I genuinely thought you thought that they were like a fad and they're gone. And I'm like, you crazy man.
So overrated. Let me just type that into my Mac.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh man. And actually, one thing, talking about what you were talking about previously, before we went off kind of in a bit of a divergent, HTTP and APIs.
Yeah.
And your love for them at the moment. So for context mix, so what we've been essentially, Lou, you might as well say, actually, sorry, this is your project. You go for it, man.
Well, we mentioned briefly last week that I was going to have to work with this Vibra API, which pulls in properties from Rightmove and YourMove and whatever else. And
Right.
I've got to the point now where they've given me the connection details to get to the API, everything. And I mean, basically, I've not done a lot of this sort of API stuff, making HTTP requests to third-party services like this, and I knew I was probably going to come a bit unstuck when it came through, and I did. And thankfully, Ed's been very kind and helped me out and worked with me this week and taught me a few bits. But it's fiddly as hell. This is
and the thing is,
probably the biggest.
they're all different. Like, whatever API you connect
And
to,
this
completely
API is particularly different. I mean, it's funny when you and really, hopefully in an upcoming episode, and actually we should still be planned for an upcoming episode, is someone to come on to discuss hypermedia APIs and APIs in general, and discuss and this is just a random endpoint API with a bit of documentation. There's no story around it, and essentially the authentication is so you do what is it? So you authenticate, so you hit an endpoint, you do just a basic HTTP authorization request, and it's all over plain HTTP. It then returns you a token. Now, you only get that token in that header once. Once you've got it, you're not able to fetch a token again for a whole hour.
So what did you do, Ed? What did you do to me?
So I obviously went in Postman thinking I didn't know this this was before I knew this, and just kept hitting it thinking, I'll get the token every time and I'll be able to use that token. No.
So he locked me
the
out
way
for an
that
hour.
they do their security is by the fact that even though it's over
You can only
plain,
do one every hour.
it's just one every hour, so you only get it that once. But to me, that's still not really secure, because someone
Is
can
that a
just.
security thing, though? Is it, or just for performance? They don't
I think
get
it's
hit all
maybe
the
a
time.
performance thing, but it's probably a security thing as well, where they think, it's going to make it secure now because you can only get it once. But really, it doesn't matter if it's over plain. Anyone can just replay and all of that all the packets that have happened. Work out and analyze them all. So it doesn't really make any
I
difference.
guess
It
it's
makes
kind of
a
like
ball
the
ache.
equivalent of you've got to leave a key out for someone, so you put it under a rock. It's not
That's
secure,
it.
but
That's
it's
exactly
handy.
it. Security. What is it? No, security. From obscurity.
By
isn't it? It's like-
obscurity.
Yeah. So and the thing, biosecurity,
Yes.
that's it. And I just, I mean, and what the nice thing though is me and Lou were able to go through a little bit of an abstraction, weren't we? We kind of were able to, we got
very
what
nice.
they made with their PHP kind of couple of functions, and it worked. But again, there's it was like, oh, okay, so it's really heavily invested the fact that you're storing this token in a file. What happens if, Lou's maybe use case was doing it with a database or storing it in session, with this or in, whatever. So we were able to do an abstraction that, dealt with those cases and kind of abstracted out the issue of authenticating, because what would happen in this, and it's, a very typical kind of, especially in the OAuth 2 kind of thing that I've been doing at my work is, you have this idea that you have a token for a set duration and you do a request with it, you're passing it in. And eventually you'll get a 401 back saying, sorry, you haven't got access to this anymore. Okay, you now need to do a retry. You now need to, get another token. So this logic, you don't really want to spray this around everywhere. Really what you want is a centralized place that handles that. And, we were able to have the storage idea of a token storage, and then the idea of how to fetch a token. And then we had this mediator in between, which was the authenticated request that was able to request a token. It was able to check the storage. If it had a token, it would now use that, try and do a request. If there was a 401 come back, it would then clear the token out of the storage because it was invalid now and try again. And then, obviously it would then fetch the token. If there was no token in storage, it would fetch the token and that was it. So it provides the abstraction, and that to us at that time is a good abstraction. We may find out eventually that may not be the best abstraction, but it works. And one of the things is, their way of doing it was a bit weird. But the nice thing is about, again, this is when design like this is quite fun, is that you can get to play around with hiding these concepts and pushing them, to the boundaries.
I think this whole concept at the moment has probably been possibly the single biggest challenge that I've had since starting to do this job. Just the whole making HTTP requests and authentication and everything like that.
This is another. HTTP is a huge topic, and especially when you talk to REST and stuff. And I don't know if you've seen the email I sent. I'm hoping to get someone on to talk about HTTP 2. And hopefully in general, actually HTTP as well, in the next couple of weeks. So, it'd be really good. I think it's coming on a Thursday, so we'll have to work that out, with you guys. But, it's great, being able to talk about this, but it's a huge topic. It's a thing in itself. It's what fundamentally runs the web, dealing with headers and dealing with the status codes. And, we're all very, typically we all think of 404s and 200s, and that's it. And maybe actually, we do think of 301s and 302s. Dealing with redirects or permanent.
I've created
redirects.
a few 500s in my time.
And a 500. There you go, 500, we've got an error. And we're like, this is when the client goes, uh-oh, crud. We, so I'm getting this 500. Oh, no, what have we done, And we found out that, we have to then just do a FTP upload and fix it. But, this is the thing. And then you realise, actually, no, when you go more into, because SOAP and things like that were very much, they just used HTTP as like a transfer delivery mechanism, whereas really you can use with REST and things HTTP as a fully API kind of concrete system. And not to kind of ruin not waste, but not kind of discuss what we're going to be talking about in a couple of episodes time. But really what we're saying with Lou, is that it's a great learning topic, with headers and body contents and all these different file contents. Look at the the tooling around it with Postman, things like that. But no, it's really fun. Yeah,
it's not something I've massively had to do in any of my projects so far, so I'm really, really pleased that it's come up, and it's great. It's great to be doing it. Mick, you've obviously been doing a lot of this with your Smudle project then, I'd assume.
I have, but to be honest with you, I wouldn't say I'm any more of an expert than what you are. To be honest with you, a lot of the stuff I've done is just followed their guides and stuff, and like I say, some of them, you can tell the difference between a good API and a bad one, and also the biggest APIs, once they're done, other than creating a new version, they're kind of stuck with them, so they can't really change them or the endpoint. So it is messy, to be honest with you. And
what are you doing with all the data when you get it? Are you syncing it in a database, or are you doing? How are you?
I've had to, because of the nature of my project, I've had to. Basically, I created a class called Data Parser, and everything gets sent to that, and things get sort of cleaned up. What's the word? Not uniform.
Transformed into a standard format.
Yes, exactly. And then I saw it into my database. And that is a bit of a pain, to be honest.
How are you storing it as well? Because obviously with this thing, I get an XML response back, and I can convert that to JSON. I was thinking I could store the whole thing as a JSON object, but then I don't know if that's a good idea or not. Or should I really break that down? But there's so much here. It will take a long time to do that.
Yeah, there's a simple XML library, isn't there? I think with PHP or something, but you could use that and just you just got to stream through it, haven't you? And then just store it. I think, to be honest with you,
But
I'm not again.
will you store that? Do you recommend storing the whole object though, or splitting it out?
No, I literally just take what I want, to be honest with you. But that's not a bad idea. I actually do that in another project. Is actually I create a JSON object of what I get back and store the JSON as well, so that then I can get the object format back if I need to at a later point.
Yeah.
But I think it's just take what you want, put it in your uniform way, and then store it, basically.
Cool.
And then what I do, like I say, is I run a cron every hour to make sure I update the results all the time. So then all that waiting time or all that processing is done in the background rather than at the expense of the user.
Yeah.
So
cool. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it is definitely. Yeah. Be interesting to see how you get on with that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Ed was talking about caching and all this stuff, so I'll have to possibly do that as well. But
well, I mean, that is the thing. Having this kind of, because I used to think that caching was like, it is a very important part, obviously, but it's one of the hardest parts. And actually, it's for cognitive load, it's very easy actually just not to think of caching and then try and think and then put that on afterwards. And a lot of the cases you can, caching should be able to help aid a problem. Maybe you're not even going to get that problem. Thought of and pre-implemented caching stuff is actually really bad and can cause so many problems. Whereas, in your case, Lou, you're going to be hitting, like I've said, treat it and just always hit the API, and just deal with what you want. Don't, because their way of saying, you should store it and things. I'm like, no, don't, just do it every time. And it's very easy in the case of those type of thing with those requests is to add a simple caching implementation in between. So where you just do a key value pair, store of like what your request, what you're requesting and what you get back, and you can opaquely deal with that type of thing. So, no, I would say try and not think of caching, initially, and then handle it when you can. I mean, in the case of like something like Mickey's, what you're doing with Mick, if you really do need to, obviously cache this information because you can't fetch it. But think of the ideal of like, if I could be able to fetch this all the time. What could I do? And then deal with caching at another, as another problem. But, again, it's weighing it up because obviously if you're very naive, your implementation wouldn't, handle the fact that, again, it's weighing up and the value of thinking this way and also then thinking of maybe a little bit about caching. But I tend to now kind of weigh it up as opposed to just thinking, all right, how do I cache this? Initially, where really I should be thinking, okay, how am I going to implement this first? How am I going to use it as the ideal state? Oh, okay, we definitely do need caching now because we're having performance. It's okay, how are we going to deal with the caching, at that time?
Yeah, I guess, exactly. Make sure you need it first.
That's it, absolutely. Yeah. Well, guys, I don't know about you, but I'm thinking maybe it's a good time to wrap up the episode.
Probably gone over an hour there, haven't we?
I think we've definitely gone over an hour. Is there anything, Lou, is there anything else on your list that you want to hit this episode?
No, it's cool. I only had my working with React stuff, but we can do that next week.
Oh, I think
when I'll have played with it a bit more.
Yeah, that would be awesome. All right then, guys. Well, it's been great talking to you again. Another week, another episode.
Thanks,
I'm liking this.
For listening.
Whoa.
There we go. No, that was good. There we go. Thanks everyone for listening.
It's been waiting the whole show to do that.
I wish they had a name. It must have a name like Microsoft Sam that we can say. I'm going to call it Sam anyway because Microsoft Sam is just a funny name. So yeah, that was Microsoft Sam. I was Ed.
My name is Dave.
Wow.
And Microsoft Dave, it is actually, or Mac Dave. Anyway, guys, it's been great talking to you, and speak to you next week. Bye.
Goodbye.
Yes. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to 3 Devs and a Maybe. You can contact us at contact@3devsandamaybe.com or follow us on Twitter at 3 Devs and a Maybe.